Welcome to Pop Robot TBI. I'm Chaffin and this is Celia, and we are here to talk about our journey with concussions and recovery.
Chaffin has surprised me with a topic today. Can't wait to hear what we're going to talk about.
Yep. So Celia and I and another TBI buddy have chosen for our theme for November the word surrender. So we have been focusing in on, well, with life with the TBI or any chronic challenge, it can be really tough with just what to expect, when things go not our way, when things go our way. It's just always like, where are you at in that moment? Is your brain okay? Is your brain not okay? So we have been practicing surrendering. So specifically, I've been practicing surrendering to the in-between. That can be like the in-between of where I'm at versus the full healing. That could be surrendering to the in-between of the day. Like sometimes in the day, we'll have dips, and so it's like, okay, surrender to this moment. Could be surrender to the emotions instead of trying to make them go away. It's like, okay, I'm feeling anxious, so let's sit in it for a second. Let's let the wave roll over me and dissipate. So it's just surrendering. So that's what we are talking about today. So Celia, when I say that, what comes to mind for you with your TBI journey and surrendering for the month of November?
Okay, great topic choice, Chaffin. I've been obsessively telling Chaffin the magic of surrender and that it's so important, and I just can't stop talking about it. And so I'm so happy she also wants to talk about it. So where I've found, so I feel like the monthly theme of surrender, I am happy to say, has been super helpful. Like, it's been very effective. And for me, implementing the surrender concept, I would say I've been like, sometimes I'll read and there's like very insightful information on surrendering, and then in that moment I'm like, oh, this makes so much sense. But really what I've been doing is I've been using it in difficult moments, whether it's emotional or pain, physical pain. And so in a moment of like, it feels yucky, then I'm catching myself in that moment and doing the whole like observing versus amplifying and reacting. Amplifying the situation. Okay, so basically what I've been doing is, if there's painful emotions or painful, physical pain, I'm like, oh, this is happening. I'm going to surrender to this. And then I just sit in it. And it's like let's say my head hurts, which is like pretty much most of the time that's what's going on. And just like kind of sit in it, and I'm like, I don't say like, oh, this is like, oh, my head hurts, or this really sucks. And like, normally I would try to escape the pain and be like, try to like talk myself out of it, or do a bunch of things to feel better, or distract myself. But instead I'm just sitting in it, and I'm like observing it, and I'm like kind of describing it, like, this feels like there's head pressure. Okay, well, that's happening. That's interesting. And then, or if it's like emotional pain, I'm like, oh, I'm a person and this is how I'm feeling. Okay. Like, it's like, I'm not like taking it personal. I'm just like observing, like, there's a human being having this experience, and it freaking like dissipates the pain, and it moves you through whatever's going on much quicker. And I don't know if that made any sense to anyone else, but
It made a lot of sense.
it makes the moment so much easier. Because instead of just continuing the spiral of suffering, you're like taking you're pulling up to the table with like a totally different approach. So yeah, that's the beginning of my spiel on surrender.
Yeah. It reminded me of, are you familiar with Headspace? It's like the app that does meditation. So on there, they have one.
I mean, I've never used it, but yeah.
Okay, well, they have one on there for pain management. And they talk about how emotions or physical pain, it's like a car that is slowly rolling towards us. We can get out and we can try and fight it and we can try and push against it, but ultimately that's not going to stop it. But if we just take a step back and go into that surrender or observance mode, it's going to pass. It's just,
or it's going to run you over.
well, if I'm talking about if you get to the side of it, that's why I'm saying get to the side of it. Don't be.
Oh, okay.
So if you're watching it, and it will pass, versus if we try and get in front of it and stop it, it's still coming. And then I have noticed in doing what you're saying, if I try and resist it, I typically will prolong the pain. And it has been really interesting to notice that when I go into that surrender mode of, okay, it's happening, so I'm going to sit with it. And then it's two-sided. It's surrender, but also observance. Because it's not like, oh, I'm wallowing in the pain. It's like what you were saying was truly observance. And I love that, because it really is like when we do go into the curious observance mode and don't label the pain as good or bad. You've been teaching me a lot about this. Like, you've been helping me not label my emotions as good or bad, or my pain as good or bad. Like, it's just a thing. And then Celia and I are always talking about, like, this is happening for us. Like, we can learn from this, and this is preparing us for amazing things in the future. And so it's like when I go into that observance mode, I try and remember that what Celia's been getting into my brain of, like, this is happening for me. So just observe and be curious, and don't necessarily label it as bad or fight it.
I think that the not labeling it as bad, good or bad, it like has a noticeably bigger effect when you don't. Isn't that so weird? Like if I'm like when you try and do this, I'm like, oh, there's head pain, and I don't think of it as bad. I just think of it as like something I'm not emotionally attached to, like, and then it's so much easier for it to decrease than if I'm like, oh, I have this shitty headache, and like, just, I don't know what people think when they have that, because I'm trying so hard not to think like that, but
I can speak into that because I sometimes think like that. So it's like when I
feel like my brain fog just showed up to hang out with me right now.
Brain fog.
Well,
hello darkness.
Welcome,
hello brain fog, my old friend.
Welcome, brain fog, my old friend. Yeah.
Okay, but specifically what you're saying, when I do have a migraine, like it's a horrible radiating migraine, and I start saying it's bad, and I like feel, I don't necessarily label it, oh, this is a bad migraine. I just start going internally within myself and becoming sadder, more anxious, fearful that it's never going to stop, all these things. It makes it worse. I have noticeably seen it makes it worse. And then when I go into that observance mode, the pain is still there. Oh my gosh, like it can last, but it's just so much more freeing to not be emotionally attached to it. So it's like my heart is okay while my head is hurting. But if heart and head hurt together, it just, who knows how long it's going to last. It'll probably go into the next day.
That makes so much sense. And I think because we have had brain pain so many times, we have so many opportunities to experiment with it differently, versus like if you just have a headache like once a week or a month or something, you're not going to like be doing this kind of stuff. But if you're having that same problem over and over, you're like, this time we're going to try this. And so because we've practiced so much, like we can see the power of just doing it differently. Like you said, like you said, the Headway app says, stepping back, stepping out of the line of the car to become an observer. And then that really is like what I do in my practice, is I'm stepping back from the situation, instead of being right in it, like, no, step back.
Yeah.
And so the magic, and okay, by the way, many months ago, someone said to me, have you ever considered surrendering to your situation, leaning into acceptance and surrender? And I thought, this person is nuts. And what are they talking about accepting this? I don't know. I'm not accepting this situation. I'm getting the F out of this situation. And I do feel like along my journey that people will present me with kind of simple things like that. And I'm like, I just reject them because I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. And then down the road, you're like, oh, like the power of such a tiny, tiny, simple concept. Well, it completely expand your ability to participate in this experience. Like, so it's like, don't underestimate the tiniest, tiniest, tiniest concept because it's huge. It's not tiny.
And I think it's cool too. At the time, you weren't ready for that. But in doing so much internal work, yeah, like the seed was planted. And yeah, I saw that. Unagi.
Good job, Jay.
Friends reference. But yeah, like another seed being planted. Johnny Appleseed. Yeah, it's like you continue to do the internal work and finally like it makes sense. But yeah, I think that surrender goes hand in hand with observance. It doesn't have to, but in this instance, what we're talking about. I also wanted to say, and this will be, I think, the last thing we wrap up with surrender and observance. Start small. With a huge migraine, it is really hard to just go into surrender observance mode. Like, hell no. So I started this practice when I was having a little pain, and it was easier to like observe, kind of be curious about it, and to sit with it and to surrender to it instead of fight it. So yeah, I would say start small and then the practice will grow.
There's so much literature available if anyone would like to explore this word of surrender. Do not hesitate. Surrender today.
I thought you were gonna say read the literature. You're just like surrender to it.
Also, surrender to surrendering.
There you go. You can read the literature. Oh my gosh. Okay, and that concludes today's Pop Robot. Peace out.